So having moved from placing our patterns, deciding what's hardscape, what's landscape, and identifying them very clearly here so as we're working, we don't lose ourselves. Constantly thinking about what bites into what intersects into what. I'll show you a little bit of something that we changed as we move to the next steps. For example, when we first made this outdoor deck right here, um, suddenly realized that, you know what, the project has to do with intersecting conditions. And we intersected the planter into this deck, and we intersected the steps into the decks, and we left a little bit of the geometry out here recognized on the deck so that when it returns, we can clearly see the rectangle as it collides with the planter. So you know what, why don't we do that with some of these decks in the passage as well, this passage right here. So in our next step, that's exactly what we did. We said, you know what, let's just intersect that into this. And if this topography is a little bit higher than that, then that could be a step down, actually, right along here. That could be a step down into the lower deck in this area. And you can kind of tell, actually, when you draw it this way, that this geometry is independent from the this passage right here. Right, the same thing right here, high topography right there. You take a step down and you walk along the passage, and another step down into this deck in this area. So this is at least the logical thinking here. I did the same thing on this side, where you might consider this as the entrance to your project. Take a couple of steps up, well, a little bit more. 2 foot 8 inches gives you 1, 2, 3, 4 risers, perhaps, equally dimensioned vertically, because this is a topography line, and you step back up again, and you have a front porch, entry porch into your front door, and it works well as such. The regulating line coming out from the hallway is what helped me decide where I place that passage. Right? Told me how long I should make this. So placed some hedges right here, because those are my kind of tall shrubs, right? That might screen the rest of the house area from an entry passage. So the entry passage has tall trees and medium height plants around it, so it makes it kind of a nice entry zone to the project. More importantly, in this area, the regulating lines are actually trimmed away. They're just trimmed away from the property line. That way now the regulating lines are within our site, and made some adjustments like we talked about here. So it's becoming a little bit more complete, so that it begins to look like this. We looked at this a little bit earlier. Okay, where your zones, your regulating lines are never outside of your property line. This is your legal property line, and you don't draw or build anything outside of it. Everything is just inside of it. Hence the trimming of everything, right? Okay. So moving along to maybe the final step. There's never really a final step, but making the roof plan. Remember in the very beginning we said let's make the floor plan into a group? This is exactly why. We made it into a group so that we can actually move it away from our plan. It was actually over here before. Right, it was right here. Right, but then we were able to move it just as a unit without grabbing 500 pieces, the bed by itself, the toilet by itself. And as soon as we did that, we made an outline, just a polyline, a singular line that goes all the way around the building outline itself, and then made slightly thinner lines to identify where each box intersects the other box. Okay, for example, these are thinner lines to show that the bedroom actually intersects the hallway, and it's a little bit higher than the hallway. Placed a little triangle here that identifies the entrance to the project. That's a little bit of convention there for you. And started, making some bench seats in the planters, not just straight planters all around, articulating a little bit more as you move between each step. You may have other steps in which you begin to articulate a little bit further over here. That's up to you. So let's bring back the hatch, right? Made a solid hatch, so we identify the building from the site. That's super important. Okay. Super important because this is way higher, and that's the figure. The figure is positive, it sticks out, it's present, and the ground is around it. The ground is around the figure. Having said that, I think this is our last step with generating the site plan. Just went right from there and made sure it has a space on the site plan in AutoCAD, which is right here, this tab, Paper Space, your layout, and did a quick Control P for printing, just to see how it looks, if the line weights are appropriate, do they work, do they not work, did a preview of it, tested it out, was okay with it, then went ahead and printed. So always try to do that when you generate a drawing for yourself. At the end of the day, you want to see how it prints. So this concludes really the process that you might go through in generating exterior zones for your project, and then identifying what those zones could be. Circulation between one garden and the next, or in a sitting zone or a buffer zone that provides privacy, a little bit more privacy between one deck and another. And that's pretty much it. So let's terminate by remembering that we are trying to generate exterior zones as such. Here's another interesting zone that goes between one garden, all right, a little water element, maybe a little outdoor eating area, and but of course, again, a reminder that sometimes things are born from the architecture itself, all the way out. That begins to generate your zones. This is repeated information here. And let's just terminate on this image right here. All right.